Hello and welcome everyone to today's webinar where you are going to be hearing from the DiJulius Group's CX consultant, customer experience consultant, Nicole Paul, on becoming a great CX, again, or customer experience leader. Before we get started, I did want to mention that we have our first virtual workshop or webinar series for January 2024. You will be hearing or have the opportunity to hear from our Vice President of Consulting, Dave Murray, who is going to share easy tips and tricks for you to implement quickly to nail your next presentation. Presenting ideas and sharing your message is vital to career growth and corporate success. So that webinar is titled Presentation Skills to Get Ahead in the Corporate World, which all of us need. And that will be on January 10th, 2024 at 1 p.m. Eastern. That information will also be included in the follow-up email that you will receive from me after Nicole is finished presenting today. Included in that will also be a video copy of her presentation. So you'll get a copy of the recording as well as a PDF copy of her slide deck. So you will have all of that handy, in addition to a few other resources and informational pieces from the DiJulius Group. Before we get started, I also just wanted to mention that there are two ways that you will be able to contact and communicate with us today while you're on with us. So the first would be through the chat feature at the bottom of your Zoom screen. If you have any questions on what comes next, who to contact for more information, technical questions, I will be monitoring the chat the entire time Nicole is presenting. So feel free to utilize that if you need anything that I can assist you with. And secondly, Nicole will be taking live Q&A after her presentation. So if there's anything that you would like her to go into further, or any questions you may have about her presentation, please feel free to drop those in the Q&A section at the bottom of your Zoom screen as well. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Nicole.
Good afternoon, everybody. I hope you're all having a great week, and greetings from a snowy Cleveland, Ohio. For those who don't know me, my name is Nicole Paul, and I am a customer experience consultant here at the DiJulius Group. If you're not familiar with the DiJulius Group, I'll be getting into what we do here in just a moment. But first, I have a question for you. You can either answer to yourself, or if you want to drop it in the chat, you can. But if I were to ask you, what do you think is the most important thing to building a world-class customer experience organization? What do you think you would say? Do you think it's the hiring, the people we hire and then we put into our business, or is it the training that we provide to them and how we guide them on their journey? What do you think is more important, hiring or training? Both important, but what do you think would be most important? It's very controversial, but it's training. It really boils down to what we tell our people we expect of them. We build expectations with our customers, and we have to build those expectations with our employees as well. Because if they don't know our expectations of what they need to be delivering to the customer, they're not going to be able to deliver on that promise. And Walt Disney said it best. They don't put people into Disney, they put Disney into their people. Think about the demographics of the workers at Disney World. A lot of them are college graduates, fresh out of high school. And for those familiar with their program, they also have people coming from lots of other countries and cultures. So how do you get so many people with so many varying life experiences to deliver that same amazing Disney experience? We can't just expect them to do that and assume that they know what to do. We really have to recognize and identify the service aptitude of the people. So we have to we have to hire for attitude and then train for this aptitude. And how you define service aptitude is it's a person's ability to recognize those opportunities to meet and exceed your customers' expectations, regardless of the circumstances. We have to think about regardless of what's happening around us. We're living in crazy times. Customers are escalated a lot of the times before they even walk in our door. And a lot of times it's not even something that we have done, but they're still coming into our organization escalated. And we have to make sure that we understand what their expectations are. And we have to think about who we're relying on to deliver the service. And in reality, a lot of times the most recently hired and the most least trained people are the ones dealing with our customers the most. They're the people with the most face time, so to speak. So how can we make sure that they're going to deliver on those exceeding expectations that we want to see? And we have to think about their service aptitude, and it's going to come from three different places. So the first is previous life experiences, how someone grew up, where they may have worked in the past, especially the past leader that they may have worked under, right? Their previous work experiences as well. These are two things that we have no control over. Unfortunately, these are going to be preset in their minds before they even apply or consider working with our business. So we can't just assume that they know, they might have been trained on how to work a software. They might have a degree in a certain area, but that doesn't mean that they understand our systems or the soft skills and know how to establish rapport with customers and build a relationship. And even with each other, we have to do this internally. We have to build connections internally. We spend more time with our coworkers than we do with our families. So we have to make sure that we're also creating these relationships in this type of environment in our culture internally. And you can hear more from John and Dave in that next year as we dive into the employee experience revolution. But we have to think about those experiences that we're delivering. And today we're talking about how you become a CX leader, right? How can we change these current work experiences? So we have to create customer experience standards for them to be successful and lead by example. So whether you're an organization that wants to do better, or maybe you're just an individual who said, I want to step up and I want to take a role and I want to be a CX leader. Today, we're going to talk about a few of the ways that you can do that and start to stand out. We have to remember, though, that it's not our employees' responsibility to have that high service aptitude. We have to give it to them. So what it really boils down to is we have to create the standards and we have to train on them. But there's a few things that you have to do to make sure that that's successful. You can't just throw new standards at your team and expect them to do amazing things. The truth is we can dramatically improve our customer experience with the same employees that we have. We don't have to go out and hire a whole new staff. We just have to change their way of thinking. I have another question for you, and this is a study that was done. Bain & Company did a study and they surveyed 300 different organizations. And they asked the CEOs of the businesses, do you feel that your organization delivers superior service? And 100% of the time, how many of you feel that you do that? And what do you think they said? Well, 300 organizations turned around and said, 80% of us, yes. Yes, we do that. But here's the tricky thing is they then surveyed 3,000 of those companies' actual customers because they wanted to know how often they felt they were receiving that superior service. So 80% felt they were delivering the superior service, but what percentage of customers do you think felt they were receiving it? Take some guesses in your head, throw some numbers out there. But it was not 80, it was 8%. That's a huge disparity. And the problem is we're in the customer perception business. Okay, their perception is our reality. It doesn't matter what we think or what we assume is going on. We have to put ourselves in the shoes of the customer. We have to make sure that we're evaluating these standards. Because you're either an expense that can be found cheaper or one of those businesses that customers can't live without. Right now, we're in the times where people have to be very selective about where they're spending the money. And the problem is, if they're not getting consistency from you and they can find something cheaper somewhere else, you're going to lose that customer. So I want you to think about some of the brands that you can't live without. Brands you can't live without that you probably aren't price shopping either, because you know that you can rely on them. You have that consistency, that reliability. You might even have that relationship. Think of some of those brands. A lot of them are very common. These are a few of mine. Apple, everything is consistent. My husband is not very tech savvy, but he understands that the symbols on his iPhone are the same as the symbols on his iPad. It's great. It's consistent. It's easy to use. Instead of learning a new system every year with every iteration, you know that you can rely on the same iOS platform. Or Amazon. Now, oftentimes Amazon is the cheapest, but sometimes they aren't. And sometimes we rely on that because I don't have to leave my house. Or maybe there's a snowstorm. Everything can come right to my door. I don't have to put myself in danger. But then do we also have empathy for these employees as leaders who right are going out in these situations? Are we making sure that they're having good experiences internally? Your employees aren't having good experiences, they're definitely not going to be giving good experiences to your customers either. Or Starbucks, consistent everywhere around the globe. You know, you can rely on it, and you know that even though they do mess up, they're going to make it right because of the standard that they've set. You can rely on them. So we have to think about how you can become that brand that customers can't live without. And the way we do it at the DiJulius Group is through our methodology. So this is a proven system that was created by John DiJulius and put into practice in his former businesses that he still is engaged with and owns, but now has other people running these businesses successfully as he focuses on the DiJulius Group. Because we've identified these pieces that make up a successful organization. Now, as you can see here, it's a little bit of a loop chart. There's 10 commandments and there's 1 through 10, but sometimes organizations have to evaluate and see where they should start first. But a great place that any organization can start, even if they don't know where to start, is with a customer experience action statement, right? We're building empathy for our customers. Why are our employees showing up every day? What are we delivering? What are we acting on? But then we have to move on and we have to focus on things like world-class culture you see there and world-class leadership. Those are very important because it trickles down from the top. So just like we have to systematize our customer experience, we have to systematize the experience that our employees are having as well. Because it's a very competitive job market right now. Everyone is short-staffed. Everyone is looking for that skilled help. And how do you set yourself apart? Now, as we move on through the commandments, there's other things that make up certain elements like our customer experience cycle. That's a combination of things like our non-negotiable standards and secret service systems. So non-negotiable standards are things that you have to deliver on every interaction, every time, at every stage of a customer's journey. And the secret service systems, if you're not familiar with the concept of Ford, that's utilizing things like family, occupation, recreation, and dreams, and keeping those top of mind as we build relationships with our customers and get to know them and apply that as we go along our customer journey with them to get to know them better. All of these pieces are very important in creating great systems, but we are going to make mistakes. And that's what Commandment 7 is about, 0 risk. We're going to drop the ball. We're human. We're going to make mistakes. But what systems do we have in place to make things right? Are your employees empowered? Do they know how to handle those situations? Can they make things right without having to come to a manager first for approval? And then something I'm going to dive in here and talk about really heavily today is measuring our customers' experience. Because the success of any project or the time we're going to put into any project is all dependent on, right, the return on investment of our time, of our money. What are the results that it's giving us? I love this quote from Mike Hodges. He's the CEO of Advanced Financial, and he really has put this into practice at his organization along with his team. And he says that we provide a systematic approach to improve service along with accountability required to implement it. And as you can see there, that's right in the middle of the commandments there. Commandment number 6. We have to implement and execute because we can create these systems, but we have to implement them to make sure we're consistent. Think about the experience that you have at Starbucks. The most successful companies are providing that consistent service, every interaction, every location. Think about it. If I get my latte here in Cleveland, Ohio, it's going to be the exact same as it is in LA or even Hawaii across the ocean. That's consistency. They have great systems and great processes, and they implement them and train on them. So, as with any project that you dive into, if you want to be a CX leader, you have to stick to some successful project criteria as you dive in. So, as you get started, there's really 3 ingredients, and they're crucial to success. And we're talking about customer and employee experience specifically here, but this really goes for any initiative that you want to dive into in your organization or head up as a leader. We have to have senior level sponsorship and commitment. We have to have their time, we have to have their buy-in, and we have to have their engagement. If employees do not see leaders engaging with software, putting things into practice and walking the talk, they're not going to implement these practices themselves. They have to see that they have that support because it is truly a trickle-down effect. We also have to make sure that we make somebody accountable for the project. Someone has to spearhead this whole initiative and hold people accountable. As with any department, we have to make sure someone is in charge of it or it's going to fall by the wayside. And then we have to make it a priority, whether it's weekly, bi-weekly, or daily huddles, whatever best fits your industry or your leadership plan is where you need to make sure it's prioritized, but it's got to be a part of your schedule. And this is a great time. We're all looking at our budgets and our schedules for 2024, and we have to sit down and reevaluate where we're spending that time. Successful CX leaders come from a lot of places. A lot of times you hear of customer service departments that's more of the contact centers where we're not hearing someone just in charge of customer experience. And for a while there were times where people had the means to have a customer experience executive. But the reality is some organizations might be smaller. They might not have the ability to appoint one person to head that up and that be their only job. So we do often wear a lot of hats in customer experience. So you have to evaluate where these leaders can come from, because sometimes it becomes a part of someone's role and we just have to reallocate those responsibilities and make sure it's a priority and how it ties into what they already do. For instance, marketing. We're going to talk about this a little later. Customer experience is marketing. It's your best word of mouth. It's your best advertising tool. And our training and development, that's where our standards come from. That's where people learn how to do everything the way that you do at your organization. So they're great people to head up a CX initiative. Or the human resources department, because again, employee experience is a big part of this. It's all a piece of the puzzle. And these departments can work together hand in hand, or you might identify a leader in one of these departments that should really head up this initiative. Now, I want to remind you that there's a project leader, but we're always going to have a steering committee. We always want to make sure multiple departments are involved in this project moving forward. But someone has to take ownership to hold those individuals on your steering committee accountable for what's going on and what needs to be implemented and created and then eventually rolled out. We also want to focus on those customer service management, right? Who are the people that are on the front lines, talking to people, answering the phones? And we want to make sure that we also have leaders involved. Leaders, especially if they have cross-functional experience, can understand how different departments work. Now, a CX leader needs to be responsible for building and maintaining enthusiasm, right? They need to be excited about this. This has to be something that they live and breathe and walk the talk on and truly understand the meaning of building these relationships, because their communication and how they roll this out and model this to your team is going to be crucial in how it's successful. We also need to have the company's commitment. Again, we want to have all departments on board, and that's why it's important to have a steering committee to support that project leader, to make sure that everybody has a say. We want to make sure that this is a team creation. We're not just throwing standards at people. We want to hear from our team as we go through this process and create new standards. They've got to be good at problem solving. They've got to have creativity. We have to be able to go above and beyond, and they have to be confident to change the way things have been done in the past. Like I mentioned before, they've got to be really good at relationship building, and that includes with their fellow employees. We're in a constant battle over budget dollars. It's constant. Every department in the organization fights over budget dollars. But really, what's a better return on investment? The money you spend on marketing and advertising, or the money you spend on customer experience? Unfortunately, these days, 75% of people, they don't even accept advertisements of truth as truth. 90% of people are taking their brand recommendations from friends, things they see online, social media, word of mouth is what we like to say. It takes one click, and people are much more vocal online. So we have to make sure that those recommendations, those things that are going out there, are positive. We're having good experiences. And we're going to see some common characteristics from these world-class customer experience companies, those brands that you can't live without. They do a lot of things better than their competitors, right? They have better sales growth, more loyalty, more referrals. They're not so price sensitive. I mentioned that earlier when I talked about the brands you can't live without. It's not always about price. They're still more profitable, and they're spending less on advertising. We don't really see a lot of ads for those brands that we talk about. And if we do see them, they're very minimalistic. It's more that top of mind awareness. They're not really trying to sell you on a specific product. It's more their feeling, right? The feeling of being a part of the brand, their experience. And these brands are typically less affected by third-party conditions for a lot of reasons, right? They're ahead of the game. They've also made great relationships with their vendors. We talk about internal and external service. Think about the vendors that you deal with on a daily basis. Those are people that we're dealing with, and they should be our partners and our friends. And sometimes, that can become a battle, and we want to work together. And a lot of them have that higher employee morale and lower employee turnover because they're focused on making sure that their employees have a great experience, because they have that trickle-down effect. Now, I want to talk about measuring the experience, because this is what's important. Because if you want to be a CX leader, you have to prove the value of experience. Customer service is just how you do things, right? Customer experience is the way you're doing things, the feeling, what sets you apart, not just the service you're delivering to people. So commandment 9 is measuring the customer experience. And what you have to do is you have to look at our key performance indicators, or KPIs. And there's a few that we can focus on for both CX and EX, employee experience, and they help us gauge our success. Now, there's the age-old obvious ones like surveys and feedback, but sometimes there's data that we're tracking that might not be tied necessarily to our customer experience project, but it really does drive that. So a few that we see, and not every organization is the same. You might not measure some of these things. Maybe that means you need to, but maybe it doesn't fit your organization. So you have to look at what is the best fit for what's going to be successful for you. But of course, NPS, our Net Promoter Score, our customer retention rate, what's our average ticket? How much is our average sale or contract, or how many tickets or sales or contracts do we have? Referrals, of course, or people rebooking. New leads, lead conversion, re-sign, average contracts, satisfaction scores, negative and positive, social reviews. But there's other things that we can track too, like how many times are we contacting people, right? There's sometimes metrics that might be more applicable to different departments or different projects. So what you need to do is you need to identify what those metrics are and start now. It doesn't matter if you haven't started your project yet. Get a baseline, see where you are today, and start to track these things. Make it a habit. Make sure we're doing this, whether it's monthly, quarterly, whatever makes sense for the metrics that you set. And create a dashboard. Make sure that this is visible by all employees. So you can set it up in a graph style. Maybe this is something visual when you log into the system that your company uses. Or sometimes it's more number based. Okay. Maybe it's just literally statistics. And Cal, another one of our customer experience consultant, wrote an amazing article that dives really into creating really effective ROX dashboards. And you can check out that article at the link tdg.click/ROX. And if you don't have that jotted down just yet, that's okay. Lindsay will make sure that that link is in the email that you're going to be receiving with the recording afterwards. But check that out. It dives into how New Day USA really made some strides this year and made some great changes. So I highly recommend checking that out because ROX is how you're going to get that buy-in from leaders, right? You have to prove the benefit of making changes and what we can move the needle on. And how do we do these things? Well, you need a plan. You need a roadmap. Okay. Everyone's journey is going to be different, but you need some sort of plan put into place. Now, at the DiJulius group, we do that by using our methodology. And our methodology is used by, of course, our team. You've read it in our books if you're familiar with John's titles like Creating a Customer Service Revolution or Secret Service or What's the Secret. But our methodology is also used by people who do things like longer term consulting with us, or we have things like our Customer Experience Executive Academy, where you can get certified in these materials and learn how to do this for your organization internally. So I just wanted to share a few of the tools that you can really dive in and create if you were to explore into the DiJulius Group's methodology. And one of them, as we said, is the customer experience action statement. This is where a lot of organizations start. But again, sometimes people, depending on the time or where things might be, might identify that they need to start in another area like internal culture. But the action statement is a great way to immediately get your team involved. Let them know, right? What are we doing? Right? What is the action when you every day, every interaction that I have with you that's what they do. They enhance every experience. So we want to make sure that we're letting them know what we expect from them. This literally sets that standard that we expect them to execute this every time. And you do that with the supporting pillars: make a connection, service always matters, and live a legacy. Another part of our action statement workshop is you create nevers and always standards to support that action statement. And these are very simple, low-hanging fruit, things that we can implement. Things like never say no or I don't know. Now you might say, I work in a bank. That doesn't mean I can't say yes, your loan is approved every time. Well, you can say, well, I'm not able to approve your loan today. Here are some resources that I can provide to you that may be able to approve you or may provide you some success in the future. Maybe that's helping them to another competitor even who might be able to help them, or maybe just providing them the resources on how they could get their credit score up so that you might be able to help them in the future. But just showing some compassion and some empathy. And this is one of the reasons that people focus on the customer experience action statement first, is the day in the life of a customer video. This is something that you can show and create for your new hires and your existing employees, just to remind them that the customers, the people we're interacting with, they're people just like us. And this is something that you create in a workshop with your team. You role play it, you work it out, and then the end piece can be a video just like this one to help your employees really understand where your customers are coming from and what struggles they're encountering in their day before they engage with you.
Oh, I just appreciate everything so much. I just don't know. Uh, I just don't know what to say. I am overwhelmed right now. I just really am. I don't know what to tell you except thank you.
So as you can see, that's such an impactful video that just reminds you to think and put yourself in the shoes of your customers. This is also an exercise you can do when you focus on your world-class internal culture as well, creating a day in the life of our employee. Think about this concept even driving down the road when that guy cuts you off in traffic. What's his problem? We don't know. We truly do not know what's going on in people's lives. So we have to make sure that we recognize that we need to deliver on these standards, go and be above and beyond, regardless of the circumstances. Now, another piece of the methodology that we recommend using to create and become a CX leader in your organization is a customer experience cycle. Now, this is where you identify the different touch points in your customer's journey. And then you have to identify service defects. What are the things that could go wrong in those interactions? And then we identify what are those operational standards that we can deliver on. And then we spend some time in the workshop focusing on experiential standards and above and beyond standards. Because those operational standards are the things that you do, but your competitors do them too. The experiential standards and the above and beyond standards are what you are going to create as an organization together to set yourself apart. And a lot of that is based on the secret service commandment, right? And building those connections and rapport with our customers and clients. Using things like Ford, family, occupation, recreation, and dreams to get to know people. Because think about it, that's why we all wake up in the morning, right? That's why we go to work in the morning and we do what we do and we serve the customers we serve because of those things in our Ford that are important to us. The family that we go home to, the things that we do with our free time, right? Where we spend our passions. So get to know people. We often will these days treat customers as an interruption in our day. I don't know how many businesses I've gone into and people roll their eyes when they see you walk in the door. I mean, what happened to that customer care, that empathy? And then along with our customer experience cycle, when we identify those touch points and work through our stages of our journey, we also need to look at what are our non-negotiable standards, because there's some things that we're going to want employees to do no matter what stage they're on in the customer's journey, right? We want to have empathy and compassion at all times, use forward. And then this is something, a soft skill that we often lose sight of, the 5 E's. Eye contact. Are we making eye contact when we speak to people? Are we having an enthusiastic greeting? We have an ear-to-ear smile. Are we engaging them? And are we educating our customers? Right? Those are things that we have to keep in mind no matter what interaction we're having. And then there's the pieces like the 0 risk commandment. We have to think about service recovery. So we've created these great standards. We know our action statement, what we want to deliver on every time, and we know our experience cycle, what our touch points should be. And we know those non-negotiable standards so that we make sure we're consistent. But what happens when we drop the ball? And that's where 0 risk comes in. And this is a great example from Alpenhaus, and this is their service recovery process. Be heroic. That acronym stands for hear, emphasize, restate, own it, innovate, and confirm and thank. And that's so easy for the team to remember. Be heroic. It has meaning, it's memorable, and they're empowered to fix these situations when things go wrong, to keep that customer coming back and wanting to do business with us. This is another example, Leap 2. So this is from Colton RV, and they listen, empathize, apologize, provide, thank, and own. And then they give you a little bit more explanation on how you do those things. So you create these systems, and then we have to create the manuals and the tools to support that, and then roll them out and implement them. And that's really the bread and butter of this, right? You have to think about, and that's where being a leader, you can sit in these workshops all day long and create new standards, but if you are not implementing them and training on them and creating new tools and making someone responsible for that experience, it's never going to be successful. So then we also focus on things like world-class leadership. Okay, we talked about our customer touch points and our customer's journey, but what about our employees' journey? So thinking about our employee touch points. So this is a great example from Excite Credit Union, and they have touch points including recruiting, our screening, our orientation, and so on and so forth throughout the journey, 1 year, 5 year, 10 years, and beyond, so that we make sure that our employees are having that consistent experience. And this a lot of times is missed, especially if there's a lot of turnover in our organizations. But what are we doing to make sure that we're recognizing people that are staying and are loyal to us and want to stay a part of our organization? What is in it for them to be a part of what you do and your mission? And we also have to make sure that we have some hiring non-negotiable standards. Just like we have non-negotiable standards for our customer touch points, we need them for our hiring touch points as well, to make sure that we are picking the right team members, right? Hire for attitude and then train for aptitude. So this helps us to be able to identify those things and what we're looking for in our organization. And then once we have people in our organization, we have to think about that culture. Okay, we have to think about the best practices. We have never and always standards for our customers with our customer experience action statement. We need that internally as well. So I talked about our vendors. We often lose sight of our vendors. We might treat them, like they're a part of our team or just that person next to you. But how many times do we do that to our coworkers as well? And we don't treat them with the same respect that we would with a customer. So this is an example from Bush Funeral Homes. And take, for instance, their email nevers. Make sure we aren't placing people in the to line that don't require reply. Don't reply all if people don't need details. But again, we can't assume that people know these things. Some people might say, well, this is common sense. But again, it's not. And we don't know what their service aptitude is. They may have been trained differently in a past organization to act differently. So we need to make sure we're setting those expectations and setting those standards. And then, of course, we need the implementation to make sure that we're upholding that and keeping it engaged and fresh. So there's a few rules for success when it comes to becoming a CX leader. You have to do the work. So I mentioned you can create the standards, but you can't just create a new flashy slogan and have your team go for it. When I say do the work, we have to involve our teams. We have to identify the right people, and we have to set aside the time and the budgets for it. We have to make sure that people understand that we're serious about this and that the success of this is going to rely on how much we're putting into it. And we have to participate. Everybody has to participate. Leadership needs to be involved. It all trickles down from the top. And you have to give 100% to this initiative. We cannot rest on our old ways. We have to be ready to shake things up and set ourselves apart. Now, as you dive into this, there's a few different ways that you can go about this. Some of you have read the book and you've been successful, and you will do great with those methods. Some of you have gotten the opportunity to work with us and consult with us, but sometimes that's not always possible, or sometimes you might be in a situation where you might feel, I can do this in my organization. And how can I do what you do in my organization? And we have the Customer Experience Executive Academy. And when we say customer experience executive, we mean anybody who wants to be that CX leader in your organization. That doesn't mean you have to be a chief executive officer or a chief marketing officer. If you are a manager or a leader and you know that this is something that will be great for your organization, this is a great fit for you. So the CX Executive Academy is a class where you learn our 10 commandment methodology that I went through. All of those different things that you saw, all of those examples of the customer journey touch points and the service recovery examples from those amazing companies like Alpenhaus and Excite Credit Union and Bush Funeral Homes, those were all created as a result of their involvement in the Customer Experience Executive Academy and their journey through this process. So a leader from their organization went through and is able to create and manage the program within their company, work on that strategy, rollout and implementation, keep an eye on those metrics, right? NPS, customer satisfaction, EMPS, sometimes, a lot of times. This day and age, we really need to focus on our employees and those new and existing soft skills, and also making sure that we're auditing that customer satisfaction and we have synergy across our whole company, right? Again, this is great for that person who's going to be the project leader in your organization, who then can come back and work with the team. Now, the commitment for the Customer Experience Executive Academy is 3 days on site per quarter in Cleveland. So you'll come to Cleveland for a total of 12 days over 4 different visits. And we also have virtual sessions between each quarter. There's pre and post work that you'll complete to supplement each quarter. And each quarter we focus on 2 main topics, as well as the implementation and execution of those topics. A part of the program is also doing quarterly progress presentations. So you're going to get to learn from each other, and you're going to get to learn not just from the DiJulius group, but from the other people that are in the class with you. And you learn a lot from each other, and they become your trusted board of advisors. As you can see, we've had over 150 people graduate from the Customer Experience Executive Academy. And some of these groups are even starting to take vacations together because they've stayed in touch years later. It's a really, really impactful way to identify someone in your organization, to lead the initiative, for them to get some support with our methodology, as well as learn from other amazing leaders and create those connections and engagement throughout their year with us. So again, to have a successful project, we have to have that senior level sponsorship and commitment. We have to be on board. They have to be engaged. They have to be a part of the meetings, of the workshops, and we want them to be acting, right? Walking the talk. We need an accountable project lead. Okay, whether they go through the Customer Experience Executive Academy or not, someone needs to be the lead for that project in your organization for it to have success. That's if you said, we are going to open up a new division of sales and no one was to head up that department or the outbound outreach. No one would ever be held accountable for it or make sure that the work is done. So we need to do that with our CX and EX initiatives as well. And again, we have to make the time weekly, or at least bi-weekly. We have to make sure the time is set aside. Carve the time out now before we get into 2024, before the meetings start to hit the calendars. Sometimes we won't have everybody's attendance, but we just need to make sure it's a priority and that people understand the importance. Again, rules for success: do the work, participate, and give 100%. Whatever route you take in this journey, it starts with you. If you want to be a CX leader as an organization, as an individual, it all starts with you and the action that you take and the things that you do. And if you simply take a few of these things and put them into practice and model them and start to train those who report to you and model after you, it will spread like wildfire in your organization. And hopefully I will see some of you at our Customer Experience Executive Academy that'll be starting here. We have a course starting up in January, and then I think we have another quarter coming up in April as well. Lindsay will get all that information out to you. But as always, if you have any questions for us, please feel free to reach out. And I hope everyone has a great week. If you have any questions, please throw them in the Q&A.
Awesome. Great job, Nicole. So let's give them a minute or so in case any questions are top of mind that someone could be typing out. And again, just to reiterate, you will get a follow-up from me that has every piece of information in regards to wrapping up the webinar for today, the recording, the PDF of the slide deck, the CXE Academy, and who to reach out, and all of the information in regards to when the next sessions are starting up as well.
And if anybody is still there, if anybody here has done any of these things, if you've implemented any of these things, or if you are starting to work on any of them, throw them in the chat. I'd love to hear what some of you have done.
Yeah. All right, Nicole. So Robin said, great presentation and thank you, and asked about what the overall cost of the CXE Academy is.
Wonderful. So yeah, so we definitely have that information. Lindsay will get that out in the email for you. So there's actually a couple different options, because sometimes we've identified that it's a good idea to send multiple participants from an organization. So we recommend that you set up a time with Claudia from our team to talk about, make sure that the Academy is the best fit, because we also have some online training options as well. The in-person Academy is really, really the most fun, where you're going to get a lot of that great engagement. And we've seen even better having multiple from an organization attend. So we do have some group discounts available for that as well.
Awesome. All right. Another more so, I guess, a comment is, it says, I must say, my day in the life is not as teary as the ones that you create. Everyone seems stoic and quiet. May have to up my game.
Well, that is something that when you're creating your day in the life, right, you want to have a good mix. Okay. We don't want to be too stoic, but we also don't want to be too sad. We don't want people too depressed when they leave. We want them to be inspired and motivated. So a good way to do that is to work out a spreadsheet and just kind of put down your scenarios and whether they're positive or negative, and maybe what kind of emotions they provoke. And you can kind of look at your storyboard in a more visual way to see what kind of balance of stories that you have. And that is actually something that the DiJulius group does do. We do create day in the life videos as well. So if that's something that you enjoyed and you need some support, we can help with both the visual creation of it as well as the storyboarding as well. So that's something Claudia can chat with you as well.
Absolutely. They said, thank you for the tip. Great idea on balance. Balance is always good. And I always say that a day in the life video is not complete until it makes me cry when I when I watch it. So having some emotion to it definitely is a good thing.
Yes.
Definitely.
And just to expand, Robin, when you get the information on the pricing for the Academy, there's the tuition for the Academy, which is going to include all of their time with us. We will give them a nice warm breakfast in the mornings, as well as Lindsay keeps them fueled with coffee and great snacks throughout the day, as well as lunch. But the things like travel, so flights and hotel and dinners would be in addition to the tuition. So those are just costs to keep in mind in addition to the tuition. But the tuition comes with the certification for their participant, as well as all of the materials that they need for that. You just gotta get them there and get them fed in addition.
Thumbs up, Robin said. Thank you. All right. It looks like we were able to get through all of our comments, questions, and feedback. So thank you everyone for joining us today. Have a fabulous rest of your day, and hopefully we'll see you soon.